about to bust 7 common myths about big ships versus small ships debate. Many people have strong, heated opinions about which type of ship is better, but the truth may surprise you. We'll dive into what really happens with crowds, service, dining, and more, and some of these might just change the way you look at cruising altogether. Now, a quick disclaimer before we dive in. These insights are based on our personal experience across multiple ships on 5 mainstream cruise lines. So we're not going to talk about the luxury cruise lines that cost 5 times more because those are a totally different ballgame. Also, remember that a cruise experience can really vary not just from ship to ship, but even sailing to sailing. For some people, one cold steak can ruin their whole trip, while for others, they just roll with it. So keep in mind that your experience might be different. You've probably heard that big ships are way too crowded. Well, I'm here to bust that myth because on many of our cruises, we found it to be completely opposite. You see, big ships have more passengers, but they also have way more space and venues to spread out. Think about all the extra lounges, bars, restaurants, and exclusive areas like the Overlook on Icon of the Seas. With so many options, you're more likely to find a quiet spot to relax. This is also true during activities. For example, on our last cruise on Icon, during things like Sexiest Man contest, and yep, that's a thing, I was still able to find a seat because so many other activities were pulling people in other directions. Now, comparing that to smaller ships like Grandeur of the Seas that we just got off of, on sea days with fewer venues, everyone crowds into the same spots. The pool deck was packed and it was impossible to find a seat in Windjammer during peak hours. So while small ships might have less people, the big ships, they offer a lot more room to escape the crowds. Now, next up there's this common belief that smaller ships are going to have a more intimate and personalized service. And while you think that fewer passengers means more attention from the staff, our experience says otherwise. In the last few months, we got to sail on both Utopia of the Seas and Icon of the Seas, which are the 2 largest ships in the world. And what we saw is that the staff is handpicked. They're highly trained, and there's a stronger structure in place to ensure top-notch service. Many of the best crew members are sent to these flagship vessels. On smaller ships, we noticed that a lot of the staff are newer and still gaining experience, and it really shows. I'm talking about longer wait times at bars, slower dining service, and just less attention to detail overall.
This is the worst!
Now, here's a myth that's only partially true, that big ships have better dining. Now sure, larger ships like Icon Class or Oasis Class offer a ton of dining options, but the variety doesn't always mean better food. It really depends on the chef and the kitchen crew running the show, not the size of the ship. And yes, big ships have specialty dining galore, sushi, steak, Italian, you name it. But many people don't choose to pay for specialty restaurants. So when it comes to the included dining, like the main dining room or Windjammer, the quality can be really hit or miss. So it's not the ship's size, it's who's cooking your meal.
This isn't a steak. Why would you call it that on your menu?
On smaller ships, for example, there may be fewer choices, but the smaller scale sometimes allows more attention to detail. We've had some of the best steaks ever at Chops Grill on Grandeur of the Seas, the smallest, oldest, worst reviewed ship in the Royal Caribbean fleet, despite the waiter being inexperienced, which I just mentioned in the previous point. So while big ships might win a variety, smaller ships can surprise you with quality. Let's talk about the myth that smaller ships are boring. Sure, if you're looking for water parks, zip lines, and non-stop thrill-seeking, smaller ships might not be your scene. You won't find rock climbing walls or flow riders there. But does that automatically make them boring? Not at all. Smaller ships actually excel in offering those classic cruise experiences. Think about trivia games, bingo, live music, and poolside parties. There's something charming about the simpler entertainment lineup, especially if you're not into the amusement park vibe of the bigger ships. That said, it all comes down to preference. If you love non-stop excitement and adventure, you want to look for a bigger ship like Oasis class or Icon class, it'll be a better fit. But if you prefer a laid-back, intimate atmosphere, a smaller ship can actually feel like a perfect getaway. Now here's a big myth that is not as true as you might think it is, that small ships are more budget friendly. Now sure, the base price might seem cheaper, but let's talk about the other costs. On smaller ships, you might find yourself spending more on extras, whether it's specialty dining, excursions, or spa treatments, and that's just because they are not as many onboard activities or included amenities to keep you entertained. And here's where it really hits you. When you're at ports that are not super exciting, let's say Nassau for example, on a big ship, you can stay on board and have a full day of activities, shows, and entertainment. On a smaller ship, there's not much happening on port day, so you are more likely to end up paying for a beach resort or an excursion just to enjoy your day. And those costs add up really fast. So by the time you factor in those extra expenses, a cruise on a larger ship can actually offer more bang for your buck, even if the initial price tag was higher. Let's talk about the idea that small ships are more relaxing. It's true that smaller ships often have fewer activities and a quieter atmosphere, which can be great if you're looking for a laid-back vibe. But here's the flip side. You might feel more cramped because there are fewer places to escape. On big ships, you can easily find quiet spaces to unwind, like the adults-only zones, the solarium, or the hideaway, and even some amazing lounges like the Overlook on Icon. These areas are designed for relaxation, away from the crowds, and they really are amazing. Also, just because the big ship has a ton of activities doesn't mean you have to participate in them all. You can choose your pace from high energy to totally chill. On smaller ships though, sea days can feel more packed, especially around the pool or common areas. And it's because everybody is trying to relax in the same few places, which can end up feeling less relaxing than you expected. Now let's bust that final myth, the idea that that small town feel on a smaller ship is automatically better. Now some cruisers love the sense of community on smaller ships. You get to know the crew and you keep bumping into the same people over and over. It can feel cozy and everybody's on a first name basis by the end of the trip. But here's the flip side. Let's be honest, there's always this one or several groups of people that are just obnoxious and you're stuck seeing them everywhere. You can't go anywhere to get away from them. Now on a bigger ship, you have more room to disappear if you want privacy. At the same time, there's so many people and venues that you can choose what you want, and most people tend to congregate in the same venues. So for example, if you end up going to karaoke on day one and you like it, most likely you are going to see the same people over and over in that karaoke bar, so you can easily still get that socialization you're looking for without being forced to socialize with the same few people that are there. With all that said, I would love to hear from you. What is your take on the big versus small ship debate? Do you prefer the thrill and the size of the giant floating city, or do you enjoy the intimacy and nostalgia of a smaller ship? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.